The self has a will of its own, and that's where willfulness comes from. Willful. The self is willful. Whereas there is a thing called will. And will is what keeps everything together and what keeps everything as it is and holds everything together and keeps everything moving in its inevitable direction. It is will that holds it together, and that will is divine will. Whereas the willful one is the self that is so frequently in conflict with that divine will. So how do I know what the divine will is? The best way that I can describe the divine will, the functioning of it, is now, because the divine will is always present now. So it can be said from that everything that is happening now is by the divine will. And now has just changed again, as it does every moment, and now is the divine will. And as everything is now, is the divine will. From that knowledge, of course, comes the old occult and spiritual saying, what is best. What is best. In other words, it can't be different to what it is now, but then now is always moving, it can be different now. Therefore, the will is never fixed, as now is never fixed. And to give up willfulness, which is the mind's and emotions, the self's own will, you then, once you give up willfulness, it is then possible to be one with divine will. Now when you are one with divine will, that's the idea of it all, you are one with whatever happens. And so there is no what you like anymore, and there's no what you don't like anymore, because that's the momentum and swaying of willfulness, the self. In other words, where there's no swaying from left to right, you get equilibrium. And what is now, you'll see, is in perfect equilibrium. No left, no right, just balance. And the more that you are able to demonstrate this in your own experience, by being still, by not thinking, by just being, the more you are able to give up willfulness and be what is. It's a very rare thing. Although in much of your life you are what is. You're just doing what you're doing. The only thing is that usually, to stop thinking, you have to do something. Well, eventually, you find that you don't have to do anything. And you don't have to think. So you don't have to do something to stop thinking. Like now. And then eventually, when you've been in that state often enough, which is not beyond you, you are doing it now, you can walk around and walk through your life as it is presented to you by circumstances, without losing the equilibrium. And of course, circumstances then come to test that equilibrium. That's why they're there. It's no good having a muscle without testing it. So it's no good realizing or accepting that you are in equilibrium unless it is tested so that you can see in your own experience that you still remain in equilibrium. And the world has very many ways, doesn't it, of shaking us if it can. But the thing is not to be discouraged when you lose it, as it were, lose your equilibrium for a while. Don't be discouraged. It only means that you're practicing, and you can't practice without the opposite, can you? You can't practice being still without movement, because if you were still and there was no movement, you wouldn't have to practice being still. So don't be discouraged when you seem to lose your equilibrium under the pressure of circumstances. It's just the world being true to what it is, and that is to test your equilibrium for you.